I grew up in southeast Queensland, surrounded by a creek and bushland teeming with wildlife. And although I was a hands-on, outdoorsy kid, I was never taught anything about the world immediately surrounding me. I was never helped to understand the value of wildlife or shown how to engage with it. I lived comfortably with the belief that nothing could feel like we do. Nothing could suffer like we do. Nothing mattered like we do. But just over 10 years ago, I stumbled into a job in reef tourism and then rainforest tourism with no knowledge or experience, just a keen passion to learn about the natural world. As I learned the job, time and again, I had my mind blown as my childhood understanding of the world got shattered and replaced with science. Simple, stunning science. I had to relearn everything I knew about the world. But the more I learned about the complex, intricate communities of organisms living all around us, the more I had to know. The fictions that I'd previously immersed myself in, the movies, games, and comic books I'd escaped my tedious existence with, were replaced by research papers, news articles, and scientific literature. I was captivated by our world for the very first time. And I wanted to share my excitement with everyone I came in contact with. So I started photographing every amazing thing I saw in an attempt to pay those discoveries forward, using images to allow my fleeting experiences with rare creatures to fill the eyes, minds, and curiosities of many, rather than just my own. What I've learned in my time in tourism, though, is that most people aren't actually that interested in nature. Even when they're on a nature tour that they asked for and put their own hard-earned money towards, most people aren't that impressed by this ancient tree or that amazing bird or this rare bug, even when they're staring at them up close and in person. It made me realise nature photographers have got it hard. They sometimes wait in a habitat for weeks on end for the shot, only to see others shrug at what is ultimately still just a photo of a lion or a crocodile or an eagle, if they're lucky. And all I had was photos of bugs, frogs, and flowers. For a while there, this widespread lack of enthusiasm really took the wind out of my sails. Although I was struggling to share my passion on tour with my guests, I began exploring it in new ways on my own. Most of my local wildlife is nocturnal or crepusculant, and even I'd become bored with taking photos of critters in the dark. So I started photographing them on Lego to spice things up a bit, while adding a sense of scale. Right? Photographing a live animal on a toy was a challenge that I could get behind. At first, the photos started out really simple, but the thrill of the challenge very quickly got the better of me, and things rapidly evolved. Today, thanks to a profundity of expressions, outfits, and accessories, I can build and photograph a macro world populated by characters we can identify with that complements, contrasts, or highlights my subject. Colourful, vibrant, and suddenly familiar, the photos become a window into a world we can accessibly relate to. Yet the juxtaposition between the living organism and the synthetic backdrop makes the animal, the alien, more familiar than ever before. Suddenly, we can look them in the eyes and see them clearly, both for what they aren't and sometimes what they are. Each photo has been its own education for me. Many of the creatures I get an opportunity to photograph are things I didn't even know existed. But even the familiar faces are creatures I've previously only ever known from a distance. I aim to take single shot photographs, so the lighting, the angles, and the space itself all need to be carefully thought out and planned in advance, and then chaotically rearranged as I learn on the fly how my subject behaves in novel environments. They can't all be as hospitable as this Borregama cordata was. Once, I found an Acrophila wolfingi, or wolfing's giant stick insect. I knew I wanted to portray this majestic, stick-imitating leggy giant as a rampaging space monster. Thinking my biggest challenge would be making it look lively when, as a species, they're most commonly seen pretending to be a stick, I ingeniously created a rocky canyon 2 feet long with some fleeing space troopers to act as prey. I confidently placed the insect down, and those critters are fast. It took my partner Sam and I 2 nights, 5 lights and 3 different cameras to finally capture an image worth using. As we reset and burst shot again and again and again, the insect skidded wildly across the frame every time. From the 650 photos we took, there is 1 that is up to scratch. That's it. Yet, we all know the wolfing's giant stick insect better now, don't we? If I can, I prefer to shoot my subjects in my studio so I can control most of the situation, including the size of the space, but that freedom has its downsides, particularly for a photographer in a relationship. Well, more so for the partner of a photographer. Certain critters get flighty when they find themselves in a plastic playground, and Sam, who doesn't love having critters in the house quite like I do, has had me greet her at the door on more than one occasion, saying, firstly, I want you to know it doesn't bite, but I need you to help me look for something. Although I was enjoying it, I kept my photography secret for a long time. I sometimes felt embarrassed to admit that as a grown man, I had enough toys to photograph right from the start. I was worried that my nature nerd buddies would look down on me, and I thought people would think I was mistreating these animals, even though I'm well researched in animal ethics and was taking every care possible. I only shared my photos with a few trusted people, but they kept sharing them with others, and then them with others. And the judgment and negativity never came. What I found instead was that people would inspect the photos, investigate the animals, tease out the jokes that I'd hidden in there. And while they were looking, I had their undivided attention. Finally, for the first time, people listened when I talked about the largest mosquito on Earth, Toxorynchides, and how their diet of nectar makes them important pollinators, and how their larvae eat the larvae of blood-sucking mosquitoes, meaning that despite the common belief that the only good mosquito is a dead one, some of them are hugely beneficial. They heard about how greyback cane beetles are native to Australia, yet nobody knew anything about them until an introduced grass replaced native vegetation and caused a population explosion. Instead of restoring the balance that had been disrupted, much like today, the community set out to focus on ways that the symptom could be treated without dealing with the core of the problem that had been created. The solution back then, the introduction of the cane toad. And we've been paying for that ever since. People began to understand that our generalisations about cockroaches aren't accurate, and that although Australia is home to at least 400 species, only a handful are a pest to humans. Cockroaches are critical biocyclers, integral to the breakdown of decaying material, and only the few species that have adapted to consume the mountains of waste that we produce are considered problematic at all. Despised for being vectors for disease, it feels worth pointing out that the germs they transport are often the very same ones we breed in our homes and then carelessly throw away where cockroaches find access to them. Suddenly, I could find myself bringing up the black market trade and the poor environmental protections that enable it, and how an estimated 10,000 Australian tarantulas are stolen from the wild, unnoticed, each year. Or, if I've really got somebody's ear, I could even dig into how little we know of the bugs around us. How some estimates suggest as little as 20% of all insect species have been scientifically described, and that new bugs get identified every year, including ones that are a common sight in their home ranges. I could delve into the complex and sometimes mysterious food webs that surround us, or I could talk about how tiny, seemingly insignificant creatures like ants or termites can reshape entire ecosystems, working together to achieve a unified goal, swelling in numbers until they've built a world that benefits them. Our natural world, this planet we call home, is a delicate balance of life supporting life. But in many ways, that balance is starting to shift. Entire links of the chain may go extinct before our very eyes. Could our perceptions of the tiny lives around us be playing some part in that? It worries me that in our modern insular societies, it's become easier than ever to trick ourselves into thinking that the natural world is not our problem, that major parts of it are little more than dirty or scary or icky and unneeded and expendable. I don't think it's the result of some Machiavellian scheme to undermine invertebrates, though. I think it's just an accumulation of ignorance, built up alongside years of convenience culture and environmental disassociation. But it is not all doom and gloom. I could wax lyrical about the marvellous virtues of invertebrates all day. In 2006, it was conservatively estimated that wild insects contributed $57 billion worth of ecological services to the United States alone each year. Decomposing dead material to create topsoil, converting leaf litter which reduces fuel loads for wildfires, pollination, propagation, dung removal, pest control. Heck, insects are even an essential source of everyday protein for somewhere around 2 billion people worldwide. They really are the little things that run the world. I'm not trying to become an artist or a social media figure or a wildlife photographer. I'm just trying to make a difference and challenge my previously misguided conditioning about our natural world. Through creative photography, we can help people to care and see the wonder that lies all around them. I stumbled upon a way to photograph the things most people won't look twice at, in a manner that can make them stop, think, learn, and maybe even question the ignorance they inherited from a society that lost its way. Some of the biggest shifts in human history started with one or two renegades who saw things differently. People who had the confidence to rebel against the status quo and speak for a truth that few others could see. The confidence to challenge what others accepted was right because nobody had told them any better. Small acts, when multiplied by billions of people, can make a difference. And that's what I'm trying to achieve. I don't want to raise my daughter in a collapsing world. I'm not willing to just stand by and watch as it falls apart. I want our little critters where they belong, in the dirt, on our plants, in our minds, and deep within our conversations. We have a long way to go to recognise our smallest creatures for the marvels that they are and to care for them accordingly. But I truly believe in the impact that one person can have if they care enough to contribute in the first place. And you can be that person. If you want to make a difference for a tiny bug-eyed ally, here are 3 things you can start right now. Cutting insecticide and pesticide use. Easy. Planting native plants in your garden. And buying organic or pesticide-free. Those 3 things will not only help the tiny lives around you, but will also make your own environment healthier and more enjoyable too. This planet is our one and only home. And everything we are, everything we have, and everything we need is inextricably linked to the natural world. A world that is run by bugs. They're small but mighty, just like us. And our fates are woven together. But we won't fight to save them, and therefore ourselves, if we can't learn to truly see them, respect them, and care about them first.